The cafe was almost full when the black single dad walked in. It was late afternoon, the quiet hour between lunch and dinner, when people came to sit alone with their thoughts. He preferred this time. Less noise, less staring, less explaining. He balanced a small tray carefully as he scanned the room for an empty table. One coffee, one sandwich, nothing fancy. Just enough to get him through the rest of the day before picking his son up from school. Every table was taken. He sighed softly and waited near the wall, not wanting to rush anyone. That's when he noticed her. She sat alone at a small round table near the window. A young girl, maybe 12 or 13. Her backpack rested against the chair. One leg was tucked beneath the table, artificial and carefully positioned, but still noticeable if you looked twice. Most people looked away. He had learned to notice things like that, not because he judged, but because life had taught him what it felt like to be seen only for what people assumed. He turned his eyes back toward the counter, thinking he might just take his food to go. Then he heard her voice, soft, polite, nervous. "Excuse me, sir." He turned. She was looking at him, hands folded tightly in her lap. "Yes?" he said. She swallowed. Can I share this table?" The question seemed simple, ordinary, but the way she asked it made the room feel suddenly very quiet. People nearby pretended not to listen. They always did. He glanced at the empty chair across from her, then back at her face. She looked hopeful but ready for disappointment. Like she had asked this question before and already knew how it usually ended. "Of course," he said gently. "That's kind of you to offer." Her shoulders relaxed instantly, as if she had been holding her breath. "Thank you," she said. "I didn't want to bother anyone else." "You didn't bother me," he replied as he sat down. They ate in silence for a few moments. Outside, cars passed by. Inside, the cafe hummed softly. He noticed her glancing at his hands. They were rough, marked by years of work. He worked maintenance at a warehouse, long hours, steady pay, little recognition. Enough to keep life moving forward. "You're waiting for someone?" he asked kindly. She shook her head. "No, I'm just waiting for the bus." "It's usually late." He nodded. "Mine too. Life's good at making us wait." She smiled at that. After a moment, she asked, "Do you have kids?" "Yes," he said. "A son." Her eyes brightened. "How old?" "8," he replied. "Talks nonstop." She laughed softly. "I like kids like that." He hesitated, then asked, "And you?" She looked down at her plate. "It's just me and my mom," he nodded. "No pity, just understanding." They ate quietly again. It felt easy, comfortable, like two people sharing space without needing to fill it with noise. Then a man at the next table shifted uncomfortably. His eyes flicked between them, lingering a bit too long on the girl's leg, then on the dad's face. The dad noticed. He always did. The girl noticed too. Her shoulders tightened. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly. "If you don't want to sit here anymore, I understand." He looked at her, surprised. "Why would you say that?" She shrugged. "People get uncomfortable." He placed his coffee down slowly. "Well," he said calmly, "that sounds like a problem they need to fix." "Not you." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "You're not embarrassed?" she asked. "About sitting with you?" He said gently. "No, I'm grateful." "For what?" "For the company." Something shifted in her expression. Not happiness exactly, something deeper. Something like relief. But neither of them noticed the woman standing near the counter, watching them closely. Or the phone she lifted quietly. Or the way her eyes narrowed not with kindness, but suspicion. And neither of them knew that this simple moment at a cafe table was about to change both their lives in ways neither had imagined. The cafe door opened and closed again, letting in a rush of cool air. The girl glanced toward the entrance, then back at the clock on the wall. The bus was late again. The black single dad noticed her shifting in her seat. "Long wait?" he asked. She nodded. "Always. Sometimes it doesn't come at all." "That's rough," he said. You hungry enough to finish that sandwich? She smiled faintly. I'm saving half for my mom. He respected that. Some kids learned responsibility early. Across the room, the woman near the counter continued to watch them. She wasn't subtle. Her gaze moved from the man's face to the girl's leg, then back again, her lips pressed into a thin line. She whispered something to the barista. The barista frowned. They're just sitting, he replied quietly. That's not appropriate, the woman insisted. A grown man, a young girl. People should be careful. The barista looked uncomfortable but didn't respond. At the table, the girl shifted again. Do you think? She hesitated, then stopped herself. What is it? The man asked. Never mind, she said quickly. It's stupid. He leaned back slightly. If it matters to you, it's not stupid. She took a breath. Do you think people stare because of my leg? He didn't answer right away. He chose his words carefully. Sometimes people stare because they don't understand, he said. Sometimes because they're afraid of what's different. And sometimes because they don't want to admit they could be kinder. She nodded slowly. My mom says that too, he smiled. Sounds like a smart woman. The woman by the counter suddenly stepped forward. Excuse me, she said loudly, drawing attention. Several heads turned. The dad looked up calmly. Yes? She crossed her arms. Do you know this child? The girl froze. Yes, the man replied. I do now. That's not what I meant, the woman said sharply. Is she your daughter? No. Then why are you sitting with her? The room went quiet, the girl's hands clenched in her lap. Her eyes darted toward the door, as if she wished she could disappear. The man didn't raise his voice. He didn't stand up. Because she offered to share her table, he said. And I accepted. That's inappropriate, the woman said. People are watching. They're welcome to, he replied evenly. The barista stepped in. Ma'am, there's no rule against sharing tables, the woman scoffed. I'm just trying to protect the child. The man turned to the girl. Are you uncomfortable? He asked gently. She shook her head quickly. No, sir, the woman frowned. You don't have to say that. The girl straightened her back. Yes, I do, she said quietly. I asked him to sit here. The woman looked stunned. The dad smiled at the girl, not proudly but encouragingly. Well said, he told her. The woman hesitated, then grabbed her bag. This place is ridiculous, she muttered before walking out. The cafe slowly returned to normal. Conversations resumed, though softer than before. The girl exhaled shakily. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, he said firmly. You spoke up. That takes courage. She blinked. Really? Absolutely. Outside, the bus finally appeared at the end of the street. That's mine, she said, relief flooding her voice. She stood carefully, adjusting her bag. Thank you, she said. For staying. He stood too. Thank you for inviting me. She paused, then said, My mom always says small kindnesses matter. He nodded. She's right. The girl smiled, then headed for the door. As she left, the barista leaned over. You handled that well, he said. The dad nodded. She did. What he didn't notice was the phone lying on the woman's table still recording. And he didn't know that a short clip, taken out of context, was already on its way to being shared. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. The black single dad didn't know that yet. He was in his apartment kitchen, packing his son's lunch like he always did. Peanut butter sandwich, apple slices. A small note folded neatly inside the bag that read, Have a good day. I'm proud of you. His phone buzzed on the counter. He ignored it. Then it buzzed again. And again. At the cafe across town, the woman who had filmed the clip sat scrolling through comments, her lips pressed into a thin smile. The video showed only a few seconds, him sitting across from the girl, leaning slightly forward, speaking calmly. No sound. No context. The caption read, Grown man alone with a disabled child in a cafe. Where are her parents? Within hours, opinions exploded. Some people defended him. Others judged instantly. By mid-morning, his supervisor called him into the office. "We've had some complaints," the supervisor said carefully, sliding a phone across the desk. He watched the clip once, then again. "That's not what happened," he said quietly. "I believe you," the supervisor replied. "But social media doesn't wait for explanations," he nodded. He had learned that long ago. By afternoon, strangers recognized him on the street. Some stared, some whispered. One person muttered something cruel under their breath. He kept walking. Across town, the girl sat at home on the couch, knees tucked close, phone in her hands. Her face was pale. "That's him," she said softly to her mother. "That's the man from the cafe." Her mother leaned forward, watching carefully. Her jaw tightened, not in anger, but concern. "They made it look wrong," the girl said. "It wasn't." "I know," her mother said. "And we're going to fix this." At the warehouse, the dad's phone finally rang with a number he didn't recognize. "Hello? Is this the man from the cafe?" a voice asked. "Yes," he replied cautiously. "This is a reporter," the voice said. "People are asking questions." He closed his eyes briefly. "I'm sure they are." That evening, he sat alone at the same kitchen table where he helped his son with homework every night. His son looked up. "Dad," he asked, "why were kids at school talking about you?" The dad's chest tightened. "What did they say?" he asked gently. "That you were on a video," his son said. "They said bad things." The dad reached across the table and placed his hand over his son's. "Listen to me," he said. "Sometimes people talk before they understand. That doesn't mean they're right." His son nodded slowly. "I know you're good." That was enough. Later that night, a message arrived. "This is the girl from the cafe. I want to help. My mom says we should speak up." He stared at the screen for a long moment. "Only if you're comfortable," he replied. "You don't owe anyone anything." The reply came quickly. "I want to." The next day, the girl and her mother stood in front of a small group of reporters. The girl's voice shook at first, but steadied as she spoke. "I asked him to sit with me," she said. "He was kind. He treated me like a person." "Not a problem," her mother added. "Judging a moment without context hurts real people, especially people who were doing nothing wrong." The clip spread too, but this time with sound. With truth. Slowly, the narrative shifted. Comments changed. Apologies appeared, but the damage didn't disappear overnight. The dad watched the interview from his living room. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He just felt tired. His phone buzzed again. A message from the girl. "Thank you for saying yes to sharing the table," he typed back. "Thank you for reminding people what kindness looks like." Neither of them knew yet that this story was still far from over, because sometimes the loudest judgment comes before the quietest reward. The attention didn't disappear when the truth came out. It only changed shape. Some people apologized. Others deleted comments. Many simply moved on, as if nothing had happened. But for the black single dad, life did not return to normal so easily. At the warehouse, things felt different. Coworkers who once joked with him now avoided eye contact. Not because they thought he was guilty, but because they didn't know what to say. Silence followed him down hallways. Conversations stopped when he entered a room. His supervisor called him in again. "I want you to know," the supervisor said carefully. "We don't think you did anything wrong." The dad nodded. "I understand. But the company, they're nervous," the supervisor continued. "There's pressure, sponsors, public image. I get it," he said quietly. "We're going to place you on leave," the supervisor said. "Paid, for now." The words sounded gentle, but they still landed heavy. At home, he tried to keep things normal for his son. Dinner at the same time, homework at the table, stories before bed. But his son noticed. "Are we in trouble?" the boy asked one night. The dad swallowed. "No," he said. "We're just waiting." "For what?" "For people to remember how to be fair." The next day, a letter arrived in the mail. Not a bill, not a complaint. An invitation. A local community center was hosting a discussion about kindness, disability, and judgment. They asked if he would be willing to speak not as a headline, but as a person. He stared at the envelope for a long time. He wasn't a speaker. He fixed things. He showed up. He stayed quiet. But then he thought of the girl at the cafe. How her voice had shaken and then steadied. That evening, he called the number. "I'm not good with words," he said. "You don't need to be," the woman on the line replied. "You just need to be honest." The night of the event, the room filled slowly. Parents, teenagers, elderly couples, people with disabilities, people without. The girl was there, sitting beside her mother in the front row. When the dad stepped onto the small stage, the room grew quiet. He didn't use notes. "I didn't do anything special," he said. "I sat at a table because someone asked me to." A few heads nodded. "We live in a world where kindness gets questioned," he continued. "And judgment travels faster than truth." He paused, then added, "I'm a father. That's my job. Everything else comes second." The girl watched him closely. When he finished, there was no loud applause. Just a steady, respectful clap that filled the room. Afterward, people approached him, not for photos, not for stories, but to say thank you. One man said, "You helped my daughter feel less afraid." One woman said, "You reminded me to slow down." The girl walked up last. "My bus comes on time now," she said with a small smile. He laughed softly. "That's a miracle." She hesitated. "You didn't have to stay when that woman spoke up." "Yes, I did," he said gently. "Because leaving would have taught the wrong lesson." At work, the pressure eased. Sponsors moved on to new stories. The leave ended, but something inside him had shifted. A week later, a small envelope arrived. Inside was a note written in careful handwriting. "Because you said yes, I don't feel invisible anymore." He folded the note and placed it beside the photo of his son on the fridge. That night, as he washed dishes, his son asked, "Would you do it again?" The dad didn't hesitate. "Yes," he said. Every time, because the answer he gave at that cafe table wasn't just for one girl. It was for the world his son was growing up in. Life slowly found its rhythm again. Not the old rhythm, but a new one. The black single dad returned fully to work. The warehouse felt less heavy now, though not exactly the same. Some coworkers greeted him with nods instead of words. Others asked careful questions, wanting to understand without crossing lines. He answered honestly, briefly, then he went back to work. That was always his way. At home, his son noticed the changes more clearly than anyone else. People smiled at his father in public now. Sometimes strangers said hello. Once, a woman thanked him quietly in a grocery store aisle and walked away before he could respond. "Do they know you?" his son asked one evening. "No," the dad said, rinsing dishes. "They just know a moment." His son thought about that. "Is that good or bad?" "It depends," the dad replied. "Moments can teach people, but they shouldn't define you." The boy nodded, accepting the answer the way children accept truth when it's given gently. A few weeks later, the community center called again. They wanted to start a small program, nothing flashy. Just a place where kids with disabilities could meet mentors, not to be fixed, not to be pitied, but to be heard. They asked if he would help. He hesitated. Time was already tight. Work, parenting, bills, life. But then he remembered the cafe. The empty chair, the question, "Can I share this table?" "Yes," he said. The first meeting was small, 3 kids. 2 parents. Folding chairs in a room that smelled faintly of cleaning spray and old books. The girl from the cafe sat near the window, her backpack at her feet. When she saw him, she smiled, not nervously this time, comfortably. The session wasn't dramatic. No speeches, no cameras, just conversations about school, about fear, about being stared at, about being ignored. The dad didn't talk much, he listened. That turned out to be exactly what they needed. Afterward, the girl's mother approached him. "You changed something for her." she said softly. He shook his head. She did that herself. Weeks passed. The program grew slowly. A few more kids, a few more parents, no headlines. No viral clips, just presence. One afternoon, as he walked his son home from school, they passed the cafe. Can we go in? His son asked. They found a table near the window. The dad noticed a young boy standing nearby, scanning the room with uncertainty. He clutched a tray too tightly. One of his sleeves was pinned up neatly. The dad didn't think. He simply pulled out the empty chair. You're welcome to sit here, he said. The boy looked surprised, then relieved. Thank you, he said. His son watched quietly. Later, as they walked home, his son asked, Is that why you said yes that day? The dad considered the question. I said yes because it was the right thing, he said. But sometimes you don't know how far a yes can go. That night, he found another note taped to the fridge. His son's handwriting was messy, letters uneven. I want to be like you. The dad sat down and closed his eyes, not because he felt proud, but because he felt grateful. Grateful that his son was learning what strength really looked like. Grateful that kindness didn't need permission. Grateful that a single answer, given without thinking, could echo so far. And somewhere across town, a girl waited for the bus, sitting straighter now, no longer afraid to ask for space in the world. Because one day, a stranger had said yes, the cafe hadn't changed. Same window, same small round tables, same soft noise of cups and quiet conversations. But for the black single dad, it felt different now, like a place that carried memory. He sat at a corner table, waiting. His son stirred sugar into a hot chocolate, completely focused on the way it dissolved. Outside, the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk. You nervous? His son asked. A little, the dad admitted. Why? Because sometimes, he said, the things we don't plan end up meaning the most. The door opened. The girl walked in with her mother beside her. She moved with confidence now. Not fast, not careful, just steady. Her backpack hung loosely over one shoulder. When she spotted him, she smiled wide. You came, she said. I said I would, he replied. They sat together, the same way they had weeks ago, only this time, no one stared. Or maybe they did, but it no longer mattered. The girl pulled something from her bag. A folded piece of paper. I wrote this for school, she said. It's about a moment that changed how I see people. She slid the paper across the table. It didn't mention his name, or the video, or the cafe. It talked about a chair, an invitation. A man who didn't move away when things got uncomfortable. When I asked to share the table, she said quietly, I thought you might say no. Most people do. He felt a tightness in his chest. And when you said yes, she continued, it made me feel like I wasn't something people needed to avoid. Her mother reached for her hand. You didn't just sit with her, the mother said. You showed her what dignity feels like. The dad shook his head gently. She already had dignity. I just didn't take it away. His son listened closely, eyes moving between them. On the way home, he asked, Dad, is that what changed everything? The dad thought for a moment. No, he said. What changed everything was that she asked. And that I listened. That night, the dad tucked his son into bed. Will people always judge? The boy asked. Yes, the dad replied honestly. Even when you're kind? Especially then, he said with a soft smile. Because kindness makes people question themselves. The boy nodded. I still want to say yes. The dad kissed his forehead. Then you're already doing it right. Weeks later, the cafe added a small sign near the window. Share the table. No explanation, no story attached, just an idea. People noticed. Some smiled, some ignored it. Some pulled out chairs without being asked. The dad passed the cafe one afternoon on his way home from work. He paused, looking through the window. At a small table, a woman sat beside an elderly man she didn't know. Across the room, two teenagers shared space quietly, phones forgotten. He didn't go in. He didn't need to, because the moment had moved beyond him. At home, he found a letter waiting. Inside was a drawing from the girl, a table, 2 chairs, and beneath it, written carefully, "Thank you for saying yes." He placed it on the fridge, next to his son's notes and school papers. That evening, he and his son ate dinner together, laughing about nothing important at all. And somewhere in the city, a young girl no longer hesitated before asking for space. And a father knew that the most powerful answer he ever gave wasn't loud, brave, or heroic. It was simple. It was human. It was yes.